What's the leading cause of divorce? Marriage. A long time ago, I was on a group trip with friends. There was a question that split the group down the middle. Would you ever get a prenup? And most of my female friends said that it was unromantic and it was planning for failure, so why get married anyway? More of my guy friends were like, maybe it's a practical thing. So all those years ago, I didn't have as much of an opinion on prenups. It felt like marriage was still a long time away. I was about 24, 25. Now I've met the love of my life. I've been thinking more about marriage and prenups, and I actually ended up consuming a lot of content from these two divorce lawyers. Probably the type of people to learn about prenups from. The first one is James Sexton, who has a lot of interviews on the big podcasts like Lex Friedman. And the other one is a lesser known divorce lawyer. His name is Aaron Thomas. And they completely changed how I looked at prenups forever. Now I would have to say I'm a fan of prenups. And I'm going to dive into three of the most powerful mental models about prenups. Reason number one, you get a prenup anyway. Imagine this. There are two documents in front of you. One document is created by a complete stranger with no idea about you or your partner's finances. The second document, you and your partner can customize. That first document is actually the default prenup you get from your state. If you live in California like I do, you will be subject to the California Family Code, which dictates what happens in the event of a separation or divorce. I bet that most people would not want an arbitrary judge who doesn't know anything about the couple or their finances, who really doesn't care who gets what. If you're like me, you'd like to customize this big old document before it gets finalized. Now, if you think, you know what, the default plan might be fine, why not split everything down 50-50? I'll give you a scenario. Let's say that two partners ended up getting married and one partner has diligently maxed out their 401k and retirement accounts. And let's say partner two always hates investing, wasn't able to be on board about investing, right? So let's say years pass and they get a divorce. That financially diligent partner is going to have to split their retirement account with their partner who hated investing if they never got a prenup. That hits different, doesn't it? Once you get more specific, people really start to appreciate the differences between how they and their partner manage money. So the idea that you already have a prenup, this default state-provided prenup, that's probably the most powerful reframe for people to get an actual prenup to customize it. Reason two to get a prenup. Your marriage is probably a corporate merger and not a startup. So I'm going to read off some stats here. Americans are getting married older than ever. Data as of 2023 shows that the median age at first marriage is about 30 years for men and 28 years old for women. This is much later in life compared to the 1950s, when the median age of marriage was 22 for men and 20 for women. So what does this have to do with prenups? Marriages of the past operated like startups. A couple started young without much money or assets, and they built their financial lives from scratch together from the ground up. Because they're so young. How many assets do you have at age 20 anyway? Today, marriages are more like corporate mergers in which two individuals bring their entire financial lives that they've built up over the years. Their assets, their debts, different financial habits and beliefs. These startup couples required a lot less financial coordination. They just started on the same page. That's kind of a luxury. So these couples might dismiss prenups as unnecessary, unromantic, and give the younger generation advice that lacks the current context. Now enter today's world. Let's say your partner has too much crypto and you hate that. You guys have disagreements about what should be in the monthly budget. You disagree on subscriptions. One of you guys even has a Peacock subscription. What? One wants to rent in a certain part of town and the other one wants to pay for a mortgage at nosebleed rates. These are a lot of differences. When actual corporations do a merger, there's a lot of due diligence and contracts and review. And that's the same thing with a modern marriage when there's such big financial lives that are integrating. And the way to handle your modern marriage like a boss is probably through a prenup. I will say a counter argument, which is that if both parties have extremely similar lives and they don't plan to have a child, maybe that 50-50 default prenup might work for them. But the more complex your life gets, and few people can predict how complex that can be, including extended family, children, different financial circumstances that could happen down the line. I wouldn't bet on your life, staying simple. Reason number three to get prenup. Couples will spend 25% of their net worth fighting over the remaining 75%. A prenup might seem initially costly, a few $1,000s, but the amount that it saves potentially in legal fees down the road, it's a no-brainer. Imagine this scenario for a couple going through a divorce proceeding. The first partner thinks, I contributed a lot of intangible value to this marriage, including child rearing, and they talk to their lawyer. And the lawyer's like, all right, partner one, we need to document all that and substantiate that. It's going to take me about 10 hours, and at my current rate, that's $2,500. And then you go to person two, who receives this from the other person's lawyer. I really disagree with what my partner is saying here. I don't agree with their level of contribution. This is actually what happened. And then that second person's lawyer goes, we need to document all this and substantiate it. Do you have proof? We need to develop a case here. At my current rate, this is going to take about 10 hours and $2,500. And on and on and on. Divorce lawyers massively benefit from a couple's lack of financial alignment. And that lack of financial alignment often comes through not going through the motions of putting together that prenup. Because when you go through the motions, you deeply understand where each partner stands in terms of their money. So a prenup really helps avoid this really expensive game of he said, she said, because all those become billable hours for your rich divorce lawyers. And the thing is that people really change when relationships end. The person that you're going to marry is going to be different, right? But just think about how every relationship ends. You treat each other differently. But when the warmth is gone in divorce proceedings, these divorce lawyers say people become different animals. They get incentivized to play a game of, I'm going to take as much as I can from this ex-partner. James Sexton says that a prenup avoids a lot of this pain by deciding what's fair up front. And I quote, even if we get to a point where we can't stand each other, I'm still legally committed to being fair to you at the end. In a way, isn't that kind of romantic? Prenups are not just about divorce. It's about protection and respect for your partners. A lot of people think of prenups in this either or binary. Like, getting a prenup means that the richer spouse keeps everything and then the poorer spouse is screwed. But prenups are neutral. It's just a contract that you customize. And prenups give you the opportunity to recognize and respect the financial lives of each partner coming into a marriage. That includes all their assets, liabilities, their habits, and their family dynamics even. So here are some ways that prenups can protect people that might be a little bit surprising to you. First one is debt. Now more than ever, Americans have much higher debt due to the increasing cost of living, student loans. So separating your assets from marital property can protect you from your spouse's debt or financial liabilities. Inheritances. So inheritances are something that you could define. And probably biggest of all, catastrophes. Prenups can help minimize the damage that occur from catastrophes, such as huge medical debt. Let's say someone unfortunately ends up having a terminal illness, racks up that hospital debt. That terminally ill partner probably doesn't want to leave their partner with a crippling medical debt. If one person is going to be financially affected, why hurt two people when you could just contain the damage to that one person? Now, a prenup isn't foolproof in all situations. However, it does help separate assets from being taken away in the case of these financial catastrophes. So those were my biggest high-level lessons. I'll end with a note about how to stay together, and this is what I'm pulling from James Sexton and Aaron Thomas. They say the most common financial problems causing divorce is that one spouse is more of a spender and the other one is more of a saver, and this friction, if there's a big gap between them, that's likely to cause divorce. Number two is unilateral spending, which is making big financial decisions without checking in with your partner. Lastly, number three, lack of transparency and communication. If you're hiding your gambling problem, if you are making all these discrete purchases, that's gonna decrease trust because marriage is a unit in which you're combining resources together. So if someone is doing secret things with those resources, of course that's gonna decay trust. That was my takeaway of everything I've learned about prenups thus far. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I hope it changed your mind about prenups too.